Hello, and welcome into what can only be described as a giant butt kicking in the Orange Bowl. My name is Connor Riley. We're doing a little halftime show here. Georgia 27, Michigan 3. I thought Georgia could physically have its way in this game. I did not think they would come out and do this. I mean, Michigan just straight up looks overmatched. A team that, you hate to say this, just doesn't seem up to the moment, so to speak, of what Georgia is doing. Stetson Bennett had a phenomenal first half there. I'm pulling up his stats right now. Let's see. I got to pull it up right here. Yeah, Stetson Bennett in the first half there, 16 to 22, 234 yards, 2 touchdowns. Kenny McIntosh with the trick play touchdown pass there as well. This defense is flying around. They've got 2 sacks right now, 4 tackles for loss, 3 Michigan points. And if we're being even honest here, you see comments in the comment section here. We'll get to some of that during halftime here tonight. It could honestly be worse. Georgia's kicked 2 field goals in the red zone so far. Both of those were third and long situations. And then right there before halftime, Kendrick makes the interception, runs backwards. Then you have the targeting ejection on Chris Smith. And then Georgia goes conservative, doesn't try to score again there. It could easily be 34 or 41-3 with the way this half has gone for Georgia so far. But everything they've done has worked brilliantly so far. Stetson Bennett's been phenomenal. Pretty clearly the best half of football he has played, especially when you consider the stakes there. I will note Chris Smith ejected for targeting. He is out for the rest of the game, but he will be able to play against Alabama there. Obviously it stinks to have him ejected, and especially with you figuring that Michigan's going to throw the football a lot in the second half there. He's a guy you want out there, but given that he was banged up, it does sort of ensure that he is going to be healthy and able to play for that game against Alabama. Because, look, he's going to be a huge part of that game with the way the Alabama offense looked that first time around. But everything came up Georgia there. And the big thing for me for Georgia in this game, as the comments come in fast and quick here, obviously everyone wants to talk about Georgia, going conservative there at the end of the half. It's not surprising. I think you could sense that maybe Kirby wasn't thrilled about it. With the way it all transpired there. If they had maybe another timeout or two, maybe it looks a little bit differently there. Georgia right now has 8 third downs there in the first half. Did not punt in the first half at all. I think that's a massive win for Georgia. It obviously means you're scoring points, as documented by the 27 that Georgia has. On 3rd and 3 or less, Georgia is 6 of 6, which to me indicates that they are physically getting what they want on 1st and 2nd downs, and they are turning that into 3rd and manageable, and then they are picking those up. Georgia's first 2 touchdowns in this game, 3rd and 1s in the red zone, they convert those. Very next play, they score touchdowns. 3rd and 3 or longer, 0 for 2. Football is a really complicated game. Sometimes it's really simple. In this case, 3rd and short, Georgia's taking advantage of it, getting consistently into those situations in scoring. They've hit on some chunk plays. They had the 57-yard touchdown pass to Jermaine Burton, a 53-yard pass to James Cook. That was basically the exact same thing they ran against Alabama in the 2020 game there. And this Georgia team looks hungry, looks motivated. Kirby Smart said earlier this week that, you learn a lot about your team. You learn the most about yourself after your first loss. This Georgia team looks exactly like the team that we saw whip up on Arkansas, whip up in the second half on Kentucky. And really, they've turned what I thought was a talented team in Michigan, a team that very clearly deserved to be here. And I'm sure Michigan's getting trolled all over the place on the internet right now. I mean, Georgia's just beating the snot out of them. You've seen some of the clips on how they've attacked Michigan's offensive line, the Joe Moore Award-winning offensive line, which goes to the best offensive line in the country. Georgia's defensive front is just whipping them every single play. Nolan Smith has a sack. Nakobe Dean has a sack. Robert Beal has a sack. They're getting pressure in this game, something that did not happen against Alabama. Everything you could want, except for maybe one big play that Darian Kendrick gave up, which just always seems to happen to him in a Big Ten title game. He rebounds with an interception there to sort of close things out there at the half. And then that last drive for Georgia, I think there was about 1 minute and 20 seconds left in the half there. You would have maybe liked to see them be more aggressive, but when you're already up 27-3, there is a risk, especially, let's be honest, as great as Stetson played in that first half there, 2 touchdowns, 16-22, completed his first 9 passes of the game, 234 yards passing. As great as Stetson was there, he does still have a propensity to turn the ball over. And if he does that there, maybe he gives Michigan some hope. Michigan does get the ball back to start the second half there. So Georgia, again, this is a team that there was some interest in how this team would come out and play. They've answered any and all questions, and they are clearly showing that Alabama game that they played on December 4th, this very month, not even 4 weeks ago, was the very team that they're not. And they're the same team we saw in the first 12 games. Michigan, they can't run the ball. 4 yards per play. Georgia, 9.2 yards per play. It is a sizable chasm. They're going to have to hit on explosives, and it became very obvious early in this game that that's really the only way that they're going to get into scoring position. And maybe that's why Harbaugh knew that first drive of the game they had there. They turned it over on downs on the Georgia 40. It gives Georgia a shorter field. I maybe thought that they should have punted there, but given the way this game is played out, Georgia just getting the better. They're showing highlights right now. Brock Bowers is incredible. We've run out of adjectives to describe him, and he's even better than we think that he is. Has the school record for touchdown receptions in a season, has an outside chance of getting 1,000 yards. Just an incredible season, an incredible effort. And the fact that he was able to have 3 catches for 51 yards on the opening drive of the game just shows that Georgia was out there to take Michigan's lunch from the start. You have the Kenny McIntosh touchdown pass on the second drive there. Todd Monken has absolutely schooled Mike McDonald in this game, and it has showed up time and time again. And so the big stories here in the first half, this defense is back. They're playing fast. They're playing aggressive. Chris Smith ejected, but he will be able to play in the national title game there. That'll be worth watching. Georgia will play Alabama. Alabama won rather convincingly 27-6 against Cincinnati earlier today. And then this deep passing game, creating explosives through there. 22 passes in the first half there for Stetson Bennett. There are games this year, he didn't even have 22 passes over the course of the entire game. So for Georgia to come out and be that aggressive with Stetson, I think shows how they felt about this Michigan defense. This secondary, obviously Daxton Hill missing some time, getting down to Florida late this week. Stetson Bennett and this Georgia passing offense saw what they had and took absolute advantage of this Michigan front. Aiden Hutchinson has been a fairly insignificant factor in this game. Stetson making a big play with his legs. He has been outright incredible in this game and everything that you've wanted to see. So with that in mind, sort of breaking down the first half there, let's go ahead and open it up to questions and comments and see what you guys have to say about this game and where we should go. Let's see. And I see people saying he should have gone for the score there, Jake McConaughey. You're not necessarily wrong. And it even seems like maybe Kirby wanted them to be more aggressive. Perhaps that was maybe a Todd Monken call there, and why that. Courtney Lee, George Pickens had a huge third down catch there on Georgia's third scoring drive. He's played more snaps in this game. I don't think he's going to return next season, but you've seen him more involved in this first half, maybe not even with the receptions, but with his snap count on the field. And I think that's a positive sign going forward for Georgia, especially as I think he's going to need to be a big part of that rematch against Alabama. Let's see. Questions, thoughts, comments. Let's see. Let's also not forget, Brandon Adams is going to be with you guys in the postgame show live from Miami, discussing the latest, previewing the Georgia-Alabama game. These were the best 2 teams in college football this year. Bore itself out today, and we're going to see those 2 teams in Indianapolis on January 10th. I see Wino Brini from David Gross here. They've gone with William Poole there at that star position. They've played a little 4-3, 3-4, depending on how you want to classify guys like Robert Beal and Nolan Smith there early in this game. But they've played William Poole at that star position. Certainly, I think a question for Kirby Smart in the days coming. It hasn't been an issue so far in this game. The one big passing play that Georgia gave up was just Darian Kendrick getting beat in one-on-one coverage, which is going to happen from time to time. But it looks like William Poole is that star guy going forward. You wonder, does Chris Smith play there in the rematch against Alabama? Again, Chris Smith ejected there in the first half on a targeting call. Will miss the second half of this game, but he is going to be back for the Alabama game. Let's see. Mark Morris complete and total. That's the best half of as great as this Georgia team has been this year. That's hands down the best half of football that Georgia has played from both an offensive and a defensive side. You thought maybe the first half against Arkansas And when they were up 14-0 and driving there on their third drive in the game, it felt a lot like that Arkansas game. So Georgia just absolutely coming out and putting it on Michigan right now. Let's see. Thoughts, comments, cycling through a lot here. Barry Anderson, that was a complete half from Georgia. You hear complimentary football all the time from this team. That's exactly what they're doing. This team is playing fast. They're playing aggressive. They're getting stops defensively. Again, Michigan has shown, and this Georgia defense, to its credit, you're not going to drive the field on this Georgia defense. You're going to need to hit on some big plays. Cade McNamara made one with his legs on that opening drive of the game, and then he hit a deep pass there on Darian Kendrick to set up Michigan's only scoring drive of the game. But if you're not hitting explosive plays on this defense, and this defense knows, you saw Michigan try and run that flea flicker early on. Lewis Cine was ready for it. I said all week, disciplined in the defense in terms of trickeration. That's what this Michigan team wants to do. If Georgia's focused and disciplined, they're going to take a lot of those tricks away, and that's what they did. That flea flicker only went for 5 yards on a dump off to a running back, whereas maybe earlier in the year they hit that for a big play there. So this defense is focused, locked in, playing a much, much better game. And really, it comes down to that front seven. They are just absolutely putting it on the Michigan offensive line there. Let's see. Jeffrey Dunn, I do want to shout out James Cook here, playing in his hometown of Miami. Wrote about him today. You can check out his story on Dog Nation right now. You don't always say you root for guys, but it's really cool to see James Cook have that kind of game in his hometown. Kenny McIntosh, similarly, having a big game in Miami, an area he is from. We talked about, and even Zamir White, while he doesn't have sort of the flashy plays that McIntosh and Cook do right now, 8 carries for 30 yards, Georgia's leading ball carrier. He's picked up some key third and shorts that I don't think should necessarily be lost. He's been a very good running back on third down in terms of picking up those yards there. Some quick stats for you guys. Georgia in the first half, 330 total yards. Michigan, 101. Michigan, 29 yards rushing. Third down, 6 of 8 for Georgia, like we mentioned. All 6 of those conversions for Georgia on 3rd and 3 or less. Michigan, 2 for 6 there. They've got to be better there. Red zone so far. Georgia has scored every time, and that was something I talked about coming out of the Alabama game. 17 points on 3 possessions for Georgia. Michigan only 1 field goal so far when they did get down there into the red zone. So you've liked what you've seen from Georgia so far, answering some of the major questions that they had. Let's see. I'm going to scroll and try and find some comments. Jermaine Burton, a guy who's had a really tough year, had struggled to get healthy, stay healthy, and really get on track. But that play he made there to really put an exclamation point on the first half, that's the kind of play we talked about, we wrote about all offseason, him making that sort of play. And so it's not a surprise to finally see him make it. I bet it feels really good for him right now to go out and make that kind of play in a game against Michigan of this magnitude. The Georgia skill players in this game, Brock Bowers, James Cook, Jermaine Burton there. You see those guys, that speed. Michigan doesn't have the guys that can match up with that on the outside, and it's really showing right now. They're going to have to do this again against Alabama, and specifically the 2 things, red zone scoring and third down conversions for Georgia. But with everything that you've seen so far from this Georgia team, you could not have scripted a more perfect opening half to this college football playoff game. Let's see. I see a lot of people saying, mentioning JT Daniels, and the way this is going, you might actually see him get some reps. But make no mistake about it here. Stetson Bennett was phenomenal there in the first half. Todd Monken deserves a credit here too, as Michael Porter points out. Called a brilliant first half. That trick play, perfectly timed, perfectly designed, worked to perfection, executed as well to perfection there as well by Kenny McIntosh, making it look like run all the way before throwing a dime to Adonai Mitchell in the end zone there. Let's see if I can pull up some comments on the Dog Nation website here. Dog Nation. Thanks, guys, again for tuning in. Don't forget, after the game, we will have the post-game show with Brandon Adams discussing the latest and what's going on there. Let's see. Colorado Dog, sure, we'll go ahead and talk some Georgia, Alabama. I do think they'll keep it competitive. They were up 10-0 in the second quarter of that game. It was 17-17 on their final offensive possession there in the first half against Alabama. This is a motivated Georgia team. And granted, this is going to be a motivated Alabama team. It's an Alabama team that played its best game against Georgia when they took the field a few weeks ago. It's a team that, for Alabama, didn't play their best game today. They have a couple of injuries on their offensive line. We'll monitor that going forward. Jamison Williams got banged up with a shoulder injury today, but Cincinnati did not let him beat them deep. I think maybe you saw a better game plan from Cincinnati. Obviously, Brian Robinson runs for 200 yards, but Brian Robinson's not going to do that against Georgia. And so you think if Georgia's able to employ a similar game plan to what Cincinnati did today, what Auburn has done, what LSU has done against this team, trust your front seven and trust your secondary. That's what you really want to see this team do. And if they're able to do that, you have to like their chances, especially with the way this offense has been playing. And, for all that was made of Stetson and his performance and the interceptions that he obviously can't throw, he still moved the ball efficiently in that game. 340 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. And I think even Cincinnati showed at times today, and granted, it's so hard to extrapolate what Cincinnati did compared to what Georgia did, because Georgia is maybe the only team that can go tit for tat in terms of talent level that Alabama has. But let's see. Comments, thoughts. Desmond Lee, I see. What's the deal with Milton? He's fine. He's good to go. He's been dealing with an MCL injury, but he's back and able to play in this game. I just think, and this is something I thought during the season there as well, when you have 4 really talented running backs, it makes it hard for all of those guys to develop a rhythm if they're all getting playing time. And so I always thought, one of those guys, whether it's because of injury or whatnot, if one of those guys loses carries, I think it's going to open things up for the rest of the team, for the rest of that running back rotation. And I think Zamir is your clear short yardage back. I think James Cook is your clear most explosive player. And I think they like the receiving option that Kenny McIntosh and the versatility that he gives them over the more pure explosiveness that Kendall Milton maybe gives them in the running game. So, we could certainly see Kendall play in the second half of this game against Alabama. But right now, I think Georgia really likes its running back rotation that it has out there. Let's see, scrolling down. Foster Moss brings this up. Look, we've seen, Georgia sports fans know, 28-3. Georgia's got to come out, and Michigan gets the ball to start the second half here. This Georgia defense has to come out, play fast, play aggressive, do exactly what they did, because they've taken the running game out of this for Michigan. And for Michigan to win, they've taken J.J. McCarthy out there, because this is a team that can't out-athlete Georgia. They've got to just hit on deep, explosive passing plays, and they've got to show that they can consistently move the ball through the air. And so that forces them to play one-handed. And that's really going to make big things, I think, for this Georgia defense there in the second half. But I do think Georgia has to continue to throw the ball there in the second half, at least early on, to continue to set up sticks, move the ball, move it into third and short, third and manageable. I think they've done a really good job of that in the first half. Again, 22 pass attempts. I'm not sure how many people had that as the script for this game, but for them to come out and do that, I think shows where that goes there. Tony Elliott, this is the nail on the head. I think you need to see this Georgia team in the third quarter come out and continue to stay aggressive, put this into a 30-point game, a 40-point game, put this away. Georgia, the over-under for this game was 45.5 points. If you're Georgia, go out there and score more points than the over-under was for this game in and of itself. So I think that's something that is going to be really interesting to see going forward. Let's see. Comments, thoughts. BC and NC mentions, the refs are really letting them play. Darian Kendrick definitely should have been called for a pass interference there in his interception. I think Michigan got away with a hold on Jermaine Burton in the red zone earlier there. So they're letting these corners play physical. I think that plays into Georgia's advantage. They do have a more physical team, and I think that's something that we're going to see play out over the course of this game. And if the refs are letting these corners play, that's an advantage to Georgia, because while sure, Michigan might get away with some holds and some pass interferences, they lack the guys on the outside to consistently stay with those guys, as you saw in the James Cook 53-yard catches, you saw in the Jermaine Burton 57-yard touchdown. So let's see. Yeah, Eddie Dixon, keep your foot on the gas. Absolutely have to agree there. Coming out, get a stop, get a touchdown, make it 31 points, and really put this game away. Let's see. Comments, thoughts, questions. Dave Anthony, no one's throwing a Keely Ringo. I think Michigan really wants to try and target Darian Kendrick. You saw them hit on a big play there earlier. No Chris Smith here in the second half. I'll be interested to see what adjustments Georgia makes there. Do they go Dan Jackson at safety? Do they go Latavius Brini at safety? I think they're going to continue to play William Poole at that star position, get him reps. Maybe you see a Javon Bullard, maybe a Kamari Lassiter somehow. This might, because of Chris Smith moving out and being ejected for targeting, it's something you're going to have to see them adjust to, do differently there that they maybe would have hoped to have saved for Alabama. I think back to 2017, it was reported that Tua Tagovailoa was going to play in the college football playoff game for Alabama against Clemson in the semifinals. And then it became very obvious early on that Alabama didn't need Tua to play in that game to win that game. And so Alabama was able to keep that in their back pocket until they absolutely needed to get against Georgia in the second half of the national title game, and it worked to perfection there. And so you wonder, was Georgia maybe saving some plans that they had for their secondary? They now might have to use those against Michigan here with no Chris Smith in the second half. Let's see. Let's do a few more comments and questions here. Halftime is just about up. Let's see. Scroll down. Yeah, Jason Green. It's hard to find fault with what Georgia has done so far. It's been an excellently called game. I think Stetson has been phenomenal so far. The defense is bouncing back in every way you'd want to see them after what happened in Alabama. I didn't think Michigan had the offense to really push and pressure Georgia the way that, say, Alabama did. And again, for all, and this is a Georgia fan base and maybe even a Georgia team that, was left wondering, well, what really just happened against Alabama? Vegas still had Georgia as a 7.5-point favorite. And so there was still a confidence by the folks out in Vegas. And the early lines indicate that Georgia would probably be a 1 or a 2-point favorite against Alabama in the rematch there. So I do think that this is a Georgia team that, while as bad as the Alabama game was, has come out and showed us, hey, the team you saw the first 12 games of the season that put it on Clemson, that put it on Arkansas, this is who that team is. So I think that's worth watching there as well. BA's Cardigan, good to see you. Let's see. Thoughts, comments, questions, new messages on the Dog Nation homepage. Cade Marinera, a humorous name there, asks how important, if Georgia comes out, they get a stop here in the second half, they get an opening touchdown there to sort of start things going. That's about as great as you can have. And if it's 34-3 with, say, 10 minutes left to go in the second half there, you can call it a game. You might even, quite frankly, be able to call it a game now, but you need Georgia to stay aggressive. You need Georgia to come out, get another stop, get another touchdown, and make this into a 30-point game. And at that point, Georgia can really put the knee on their throats and suck the life out of this game, as we've seen them do against Arkansas, Kentucky, Florida this year. Georgia has found themselves in this situation a lot. 24-0 against Florida, 30-0, I think, against Arkansas. It was only 14-7 against Kentucky, but they've really shown, hey, we can get up big on teams, and then we are good enough, we are deep enough, we are physical enough to put them out there in the second half. So second half here is about to kick off. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We're going to have Brandon Adams on the post-game show. Make sure to tune into that. Georgia up 27-3 at halftime. Going into the second half here, Bulldogs win. They play Alabama in Indianapolis on January 10th. It looks like the Bulldogs are well on their way to doing that. My name is Connor Riley. This has been Dog Nation Halftime Show. Make sure to tune in for the post-game show with Brandon Adams when this is all said and done.